Hey photo world, welcome back to another episode here on takeandtalkpics.com. This is another episode from the former podcast. Please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join the email list. Let's get to that 1,000 subscriber marker so that way I can add a new video every single week. Enjoy. Hey photo world, Rob Kruger here. Welcome back to another awesome episode on Take and Talk Pics Photography Podcast. This is episode 22 with our featured guest, Miles Boone.
Because it is nice just to have it kind of playing in the background and I can do my work and do some retouching and just hear it. So I think you're doing a great job.
Today's featured guest is Miles Boone. Miles is a commercial photographer based out of Downers Grove, Illinois, and does work throughout the Chicago area. He has worked for clients such as Closet Works, Dow Chemical, Fermilab, James Hardie, Keystone Capital, and Nicor, just to name a few. Miles is also a part-time photography instructor. Miles, welcome to Take and Talk Pics.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Well, I've shared a very little bit about what you do and who you are, but if you could take this moment to introduce yourself further to photo world, that'd be awesome.
Great. So I'm a commercial photographer, and I'm a portrait and lifestyle photographer is primarily what I do. And I shoot, my clients are advertising agencies, graphic design firms, corporate marketing departments, some editorial work. And then I dabble a little bit into family portraits and such, but that's not a real big part of what I do. I kind of get into that just more because I have a family. I know lots of families, and so I kind of stumble into it from there. But I primarily photograph people, and that's what I really love. But I do, I've got a few clients I shoot some food for, and I certainly shoot my share of product and some other stuff. But what I really push is people and portrait and lifestyle work.
Very cool. And I feel like today's world, we all kind of have to be a little bit of a jack of all trades and be able to pull off anything in case that work comes along. But we all have our niche that we gravitate towards. So
yeah, absolutely. There's something that there's stuff that you really love to do. And then, when the phone rings and someone's got something completely different, there's always that, you're like, sure.
Here at Take and Talk Pics, we're about sharing stories and breaking it down to specific moments to really get us understand what you have going on so we can relate to that and apply it to our own photography journeys. But before we do that, I was wondering if you have some sort of mantra or quote that you live by that helps the inspiration for you and your business.
One thing that I've got like tons of quotes. I'm a big one for quotes and all that inspiration and stuff, because Lord knows we all need it. We have our moments. But something I always go back to time and time again comes from John Lee Hooker. Now, are you familiar with John Lee Hooker? I
don't believe so.
Okay, so John Lee Hooker is an old blues man, and you have to look him up. Very, very famous blues guy. He's now dead, but I love blues music. So it was something I heard him interviewed once, and this really struck me. So he was around forever, probably died in the last 10 or 15 years. I'm not exactly sure about that. And one of the things he said, he was talking about writing songs. He's a very prolific songwriter. And one of the things he said is they asked him, like, how do you do it? How do you go? And how do you know when you have a song that you like and that's good? And he says, this is a quote from him. You got to feel it. Sometimes when I get so deep into it, teardrops come into my eyes. I get so commotion from the blues that the good feeling makes me so sad that I feel the teardrops. I heard that and it really just struck me, because that's really when we're shooting, whether it's something for ourselves or something for our client, that's really what, it has to resonate. That image has to resonate with us. That's why the client was somehow attracted to you in the first place, because they like what you do, what you shoot, how you portray things, how you see things. And so if you're shooting something, and it can be a product, it can be an executive headshot, it can be a bridal portrait, or it can be some personal project you're working on. But until it really hits home and you're like, that's the shot, you're not there. Keep kind of working at it until you get that. And so that's kind of how I go about it. and what I really am thinking about on some level when I'm shooting.
That's a really cool way of taking something ambiguous like the word passion, which we all use, and saying you got to have a passion for it. You got to have this drive, this passion. But what it really breaks down to is having that inner feeling, that emotion behind it, that connection. I think that's an awesome quote in making that a more sustainable way for us to understand it in the physical and real world, because we've all felt that. We've all lived it. So I really like that quote. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Can you share with Photo World, Miles, your start? What got that interest sparked so far that you wanted to take photography as a career?
So it started in high school. So I haven't taken a lot of photography classes, but it started when I was in high school, and I had an elective, I think it was my senior year, and I took photography, and I just fell in love. I remember they loaned us out, like, I think it was an old Pentax 35 millimeter film camera. I just remember looking through it and just being so like I'd never really played around with like a real camera. You know, it had a 50 millimeter lens, and it was like, and you're really looking, and just how the world, you could kind of distill the world instead of seeing, you know, we see this great panoramic when we look, and this just really like focus things. And I just thought that was so cool. So I was really taken by it from that. And that was my start. But then I didn't really, and then at about the same time, and I'm going to show you, you can see, the listeners can't, but I have this old book. It's The Police, and it was by Lynn Goldsmith. And that came out about that time. And Lynn Goldsmith is a kind of a celebrity portrait, rock and roll photographer. And that came out, and I was looking at that going, wow, that's like so cool. And it was like a variety of portraits, and she just like followed the Police, the, you know, rock band, the Police. She followed them around for like, I don't know how long, but she just had complete access to them really early in their career. And I was like, that is really cool. And so that really got me going too. But at the same time, I couldn't really see how it would be a career. And I didn't know anybody other than the school photographer who was doing it for a living. So I went to college and got basically a business degree, which thank God I did. And then went into the business world and hated it. And just on the train every day to and from work, I was reading, you know, Ansel Adams, the camera, the negative, and the print. And finally one day I just thought, you know what, I didn't have kids at the time, so I just thought I'd go into it. So that was it. I started off as working in a dark room at a wedding and portrait studio, and didn't really like that end of it. And then I started assisting a guy named Will Crockett, and he was out in Naperville, and he was doing a lot of the kind of work that I do. And so I started assisting him, and that kind of went from there.
And I think that's a really good thing to hear, because a lot of people have these stories of, oh, I've been doing it forever, and I was just so inspired or taken by images, and I knew it, or it ran in the family, and things like that. I like hearing your kind of story, because that's how mine was. It was just, I don't know, I liked it. I thought it was interesting. I started exploring it, and then let's go for it. Let's see what happens. Yeah. And you started paying your dues by, you know, following people and learning from others and taking that as your schooling, the real life out there. So that's a really good thing for me to hear. Hopefully Photo World is feeling as refreshed. Everybody's story is different. I appreciate your approach and how you got into it. Miles, can you share with Photo World a time where you had to learn the hard way? I mean, we have so many in our past where just things didn't go right, but break it down to one story, one failure moment that you're better for now, but it was difficult then.
You know, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you I had like, you know, a bazillion failure moments in my, you know, I've been at it for about 25 years. So certainly I have failed. But one that really stuck out at me, and it was more of a failure to communicate. A friend of mine couldn't shoot something, and so he referred me to it and said, oh, you'll just go, you just need to bring your camera, you'll be fine. I get there, and they had expected a big production. They needed lights, we needed, and so I shot it. It was okay. We got some images, and they used them and stuff, but really, from that point on, you know, the big lesson was to really communicate with the client directly. Even if, you know, I'm taking over for someone, you know, we really need to have that conversation and get everything up front. Otherwise, you're not really prepared for what's coming. And then even after you have that conversation and you think you're prepared, you need to like over prepare. And so I always shove in a couple extra things just in case. I've got all the equipment I need. I've got maybe props I may or may not need. I'd rather have it and not use it than need it and not have it.
No, that's a good one. And I think we get that a lot where communication is a big learning moment. I know I've had it many times. Photo World, save yourselves. Start asking every question you can think of and feel confident in answering honestly every question you get at you, because it's only going to make it easier in the long run. What would you consider to be the most important practice to your photography from start to finish? If it's a part of your workflow or just interaction with a client, just one thing that stands out that there is there for every single job.
The thing that I think is most important in this business, whether it's on a job or whether I'm, working on post-production, is to buckle down and do the work. That can be, and no matter what you're doing, there's a book that I love called The War of Art, and it's by Stephen Pressfield.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the guy that wrote the book, The Legend of Bagger Vance, which was made into a big movie. And in that, he talks about how there's so many, the big blocks to being creative and to doing this kind of work. And whether you're a photographer, he's talking in general, any sort of creative work. And really it can go for anything, any goal you have, anything you want to do, is just sitting down and doing the work. And he calls it, there's always so many things that come up. Oh, I've got to do all this post-production. Well, but I got, this, I'm going to do this first. And I'm going to do this. You can't. You have to sit down every day and get your work done. And you've got to do that, whether it's calling clients, whether it's showing up to the shoot on time, whether it's working late on the shoot because things didn't go, but you got to get it done, staying up all night to edit something because clients like, I need this first thing in the morning, and you just got done shooting it at 7:00 that night. Whatever it is, you just got to sit down and do the work. There's nothing glamorous about it, but that's the only way that you're really going to succeed. And a great quote, and this isn't a direct quote because I don't have it in front of me, but it was Pablo Picasso, and he talks about inspiration and opportunity and how they only strike when you're working. And I really love that because it does. Like, I'll be on a dead end on, like, I do a lot of personal projects when I have downtime because I think they're really important to kind of keep you doing what you love to do and new directions and to try things. And it's amazing how I'll think about it and I won't work on it, but I'm thinking, and then nothing's coming to me. I'm at a dead end. And then all of a sudden I'll sit down and start working. I'll either be shooting something for it or doing some editing or putting some, inspiration just starts hitting you like lightning bolts. You're like, oh yeah, I could do this. And it's not until you're actually doing the work and sitting down and buckling down and doing it that you're really going to be, inspired or get that opportunity.
The War of Art is an awesome book, and a lot of entrepreneurs and business people will go into reading that book because it's a good strategy building, which really, like you said, simplistically, it'll say, do the work, get down and just do it. Yep. And nothing will happen overnight. There is no lottery ticket that's going to solve the problems. It's just doing the work. It's a marathon that we're on. So take those steps, Photo World, and do it.
Right.
It's as easy as doing the work, which is as hard as doing the work, right?
Right.
Well, I feel like you're segueing nicely into each question here. There's a lot of overlap in my mind, but maybe have something different for us. We do have a wide range of photographers listening. And could you share with Photo World one thing you think would lead to growth and success in their individual photography business, regardless of their current level?
Part of it is what we just said. Part of it's just like buckle down and get to it, and every single day do the work. That's just you. I cannot stress that enough. But one of the things I do a lot of personal projects, and I really think those are really key to defining who you are as a photographer, helping you keep fresh because the industry is always changing. So sometimes your clients don't necessarily want you to be trying things when the clock's running. And so it's really important to work on a project and do something and try something that while you're on your own time, and then you can bring that into a shoot and bring and introduce, and then you can show samples of it, and then someone's like, wow, yeah, let's do something like that. And then not only did you kind of lead them in a new direction, but you also kind of have an idea about how to do it. And so that I would say, in addition, and that though goes back to, then you got to do the work. You got to sit down and do it. You got a day
Right.
off. You don't really have a day off. You are going to be working on whatever your next project is or something.
Yeah, when you're self-employed, there's no such thing as a day off. You schedule the time off, and that's just part of the job, but you're still thinking about it. I mean, it's
Right.
way more than a full-time job, and you have to commit to that. And
Right.
it, like you said, with your business degree, being smart, the reason being, because it's a business. It's so difficult to go out and say, I love shooting, I want to be a photographer, and then actually fulfill it with just that in mind, because
Right.
it's rarely the shooting. When you come to the idea of doing side projects, I totally agree. And for me, the best way I could solve that was schooling, going and getting into classes, doing workshops, joining seminars, whatever the case may be, furthering my education, because it brought me to a position where I'm now given the opportunity or the push, some sort of goal to go out and do something that I wasn't assigned for with the job or whatever. There's not what I already know weighing on it. It's what I don't know to
Right.
come from it. And I think schooling in any regard, if anybody's thinking about doing a workshop or a seminar or joining classes, taking them online or whatever in a classroom, go for it. You're going to get inspired and do some stuff that way.
Yeah.
But it gives you an opportunity to shoot for yourself, where when you're working, it's hard. Like you said, you have to make those personal projects happen, because it's hard to push ourselves to thinking that's okay or taking that time to do so. And doing it on the job, practicing on the job, is not the way to do it.
No, no. And that, you bring up a good point about the schooling. But another thing schooling does is it brings you into a community. And even if it's a weekend seminar or a workshop, you're still, for a short period of time, you're in you can kind of bounce ideas off people. And I think that's really important, because as we're all kind of individuals stuck, staring at our computers and looking through a lens, and we're all it's very isolating. It tends to be. You spend a lot of time by yourself. So it's really good to have people to not only, bounce ideas off, but to commiserate with, and it's important. Kind of gets
Exactly.
the creative juices flowing.
Yeah, it does. Have you had an aha moment during your career when shooting? Something that just kind of, that light bulb went off and that was it. You knew you had to take that direction, or whatever the case may be.
You know what? Yeah, there was a time. Ansel Adams talks about pre-visualizing the image, and he would, stare at a half dome, and he could see what that final print was going to look like. And I was, I'm not most of my work is portrait, and that's really how I, see things and what I look for. But, and it was during that I wanted to do, my dad was a veterinarian, and he did a lot of surgery, and that's what he really loved to do. And so I decided he was getting ready to retire, and I wanted to do a portrait of him in the surgery suite. And so I had this, kind of idea in my mind. I shot it, and this was really early in my career. And the transparency, the film that I shot, it was like I had just kind of pulled it out of my brain or something. It was really cool. And that was really, for me, was that first little wow, I can get the picture. And up until that point, the little pictures in my mind weren't quite translating to what I was shooting. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom, there it is. That's exactly what I'm thinking about and what I've envisioned and what I pre-visualized. And there it is. So that was really, really it for me.
Miles, can you share with Photo World a time you had the I made it as a photographer moment? Maybe there's no top tier moment to this, but something that stood out as like, okay, I can finally look at myself and say, yes, I'm a photographer. I'm doing it. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, I don't, like you say, I don't think there's been any really great moment like that. I think there's maybe some little things that have come up. There's been some jobs along the way or some clients that I've won that I was like really like, wow, if I could get that client, that would be great. So there have been a couple things like that. I think one of the things that was kind of cool is when CO a couple of years ago, I started as adjunct faculty at COD. And they had called me because someone had bailed on a class, and so they needed some help. So I filled in, and I don't have a formal photography background, so I don't have all the education, and it was the advanced studio class that I was teaching. And I get into class, and I was nervous. I'm really nervous. And like the first question I get, I'm like, oh, well, I've done that. And my biggest dilemma was which way am I going to describe how to take care of that problem? Whatever, I can't even remember what it was, but it's like I've done that like probably 100 different ways. So, and at that point, I was like, oh, I guess I am a photographer. It's kind of silly, but it's like this stuff is so ingrained in me that I think that was probably maybe the most recent one. So.
And that's a cool one and a big one for sure. Yeah. I think as photographers, there's no official degree. I mean, even if you get a photography degree in a formal setting, it doesn't mean you're a photographer. Sorry, folks. But, you can shoot 100 different jobs. It doesn't mean you're a photographer. It's kind of this inner feeling and position you give yourself.
Right.
You have to earn it. And I think the best photographers are the ones who suppress that label the longest. So, they do a lot of stuff and they're like, well, I'm doing it, but I'm not really there yet.
Yeah.
And then it kind of just hits you. One day, something happens where it just feels like, all right, now I finally got that. I can hang that on the wall and be ready with it.
Yeah.
So that's a really cool story with the teaching thing. It's freaky the first time. I know I was scared.
Well, it's funny. We're in such a competitive field. There are so many photographers and so much competition out there that if you have the attitude that you've made it and you're there, you're just setting yourself up for big trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to set yourself up for being left in the dust. So you always have to really, you can't look at it like that. Like I've made it. There is no making it. Like you said, we're just on a journey because you've got to, you're only as good. That's the saying. You're only as good as your last photograph. And That is so true now more than ever.
The market's huge. The competition is insane. Everybody's a photographer is what you hear all over the place you go. And, we have our phones and our cameras just inches away. So, there's potential to be beaten out by anybody at any time if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, you said about the being in school with a community and the network of people. That's where you're going to thrive if you can immerse yourself into that community, into those networks, and realize that those people who are also willing to be a part of the network, they're not competition, they're friends, and they're going to pass you work or help out along the way. It's a fine balance, between the two sides that we have to walk that line.
Yeah, absolutely.
Miles, during your photography career so far, what is the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I ever received was probably, and I've had two different photographers have told me this. Three people, two photographers and one guy that used to work at the lab. And it was early on that I got this. Never say no. Say, yep, can you do this? Sure. Hang up and then figure out how to do it if you don't know how to do it. But never say, no, I can't do that, because that's a great way to push yourself, and you might have to, shoot some quick tests to make sure that you're up to snuff on it. It might not be something that you're really comfortable with, but never say no, because you start saying no and then people just start looking elsewhere.
Absolutely. I can relate to that just with taking talk pics. I was like, all right, I want to start a podcast. How do you do that? I had no idea how to do it. I just knew it was going to happen. And now we're keeping it steady 3 days a week, getting some information out there, and I'm meeting some awesome people along the way, and I'm loving it. So,
good
don't say no.
Hats off for you to get this going.
Oh, well, thank you. Don't say no, photo world. And, just push through. There are so many opportunities you will get. What is it? Luck favors the prepared. Say yes and see what happens. Can't hurt to learn something new, even if you don't know it yet. There. If you had to start your photography career all over, you have the same gear, the same knowledge that you currently have, what's the first thing you would do to begin that new business?
Wow, that's a tough one. And I think I would move. And I don't know what I would do, like, but I think if I didn't have, because like I would hesitate to move. Now, this is in the, Netherland, because I've
Hmm.
got kids, I couldn't pick up and move. But I think that just from a business standpoint, I would try moving. And I don't know if I would go to New York or, something like that, or if I just turn around and do it the other way, where I just move out to the country and then try to take on a photography business catering to that. But I think I would move
You'd
and give
move.
it a whirl.
Just try a different market that you
Yeah.
haven't been a part of. I like that idea. I think about moving all the time, but I start realizing all the things that tie me here that are worth staying for. So
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
can,
Yeah. I mean, it's in a, like I said, it's, a very isolated
yeah.
scenario.
Do you have an app or an internet resource that you think Photo World could benefit from knowing about?
I listen to, or I get an email from Pro Photo Daily, and I really like that. I don't do a ton of stuff, but that comes out every day, and there's 5 articles that they push out every day, and it can be it can be from anything. It can be from f-stoppers. It can be from anywhere. Huffington Post. It can be a new product release. It can be anything, and I really like that. It's 5 really short articles, and then they'll have a link to the full article, and so I can kind of keep tabs about what's going on as far as trends and equipment and whatever it is, and so it's kind of a cool thing.
Pro Photo Daily. I'm going to have to add that to it. Photo World, well, you can find all of this information we've been talking about in the show notes page for Miles Boone, and we'll have the links to these things on his show notes. Just go to takingtalkpics.com and type in Miles. Miles, what is one piece of gear that you could not live without?
Well, obviously we'd be a little hard pressed without a camera,
Right.
but I'm a big, I light just about everything. And so I would have to have some sort of strobe equipment. Most of the time I've got what most people consider studio strobes. I don't really consider them studio strobes because I'll take them anywhere. But I shoot with some, and I don't really care. I have some Speedotron equipment. It doesn't really matter. They've got kind of a cool battery pack that, so I can take it anywhere. I don't have to plug in. And I do like that. So I would have to say, aside from the camera,
Mm-hmm.
I would go with some strobe.
Get a strobe for some location and off-camera lighting.
Absolutely.
I'm the same way. I like to have the option. I use Alien Bees for my studio strobes, but I have their battery pack, so I can take one with me if I'd like on location. It's just, it's freeing. You can do a lot more with that option. So.
Yeah, when those first came out, it was just like, because before that I would run with, thousands of feet of extension cord, just so I could get a light where I wanted
Tap
it.
in on somebody's porch along the way and set up.
Yeah.
Share with Photo World one parting piece of guidance, the best way that we can get in touch with you, whether it be your website or some sort of social media, and then we'll say goodbye.
All right. So I'm just going to go back to what I said earlier. Do the work. You can make all the excuses in the world, but you look at somebody who you admire, and you look at somebody whose, either work you admire or whose career path you admire, and they have not sat around talking about it. They have not sat around thinking about it. They've gotten to it and done the work. And I can't say that enough. So that would be my parting advice to all out there. And my email's best. You can get it, it's on my website, milesboonephotography.com. And the email is miles@milesboonephotography.com. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. And that's it.
Excellent. And we'll have that on the show notes page. And with the do the work thought there, coming out of The War of Art from Stephen Pressfield, he has another book called Do the Work.
Right.
So, if you want to get the hard-hitting evidence as to how that's really going to be the reason you're going to make it in this world, just go straight to that source or both books, and we'll have both of them linked up for where you can get them on Amazon or wherever I can find quick. Awesome advice and really good stuff. I've talked about Do the Work often on this show because it's just got to be drilled in your brain that that's what's necessary to make it. So
one last quote. So I'm a Bears fan. Love the Bears. And their old defensive coordinator, I think it's like now 2 defensive coordinators ago, was Rod Marinelli. And he was with Lovie Smith. I think he went with Lovie Smith, although I'm not sure about that, to the Tampa. But he had the quote, "Effort doesn't require talent." And I heard that, and I love that. Effort doesn't require talent. It goes right in there. Just do the work. Don't get caught up on, oh, this person's talented, that person's, there's whole, reams of book about, talented is overrated, blah, blah, blah. But effort doesn't require talent. Just get out there and do what you love to do. And until it strikes a chord with you, that's all you can do.
That's a beautiful finish for today. Miles, I can't thank you enough for your time today, sharing such great value. Photo World thanks you, and happy shooting.
All right, thanks. Thanks a lot for doing this.
Photo World, are you loving Take and Talk pics? Maybe you are starting out or wanting to refine your skills in a new area of your photography. Like I say on the show, we are always learning, and that learning doesn't have to stop. At the College of DuPage, their photography program is amazing. I should know. I'm a former student, and now I'm an instructor at the school. Visit cod.edu/photo for more information on their program. Not local to the Chicago area? That's okay. The College of DuPage photography program is now offering online courses. Just check the course catalog for what fits your schedule. Again, that's cod.edu/photo for more information. Thank you, Photo World, for tuning in to another great episode here on Take and Talk Pics. I hope you got the amazing value that I did out of this episode in interviewing our featured photographer for today. If you'd like to learn more about this photographer and the other photographers that we have interviewed in the past, head to takeandtalkpics.com.